Last time on the Say Report, we promised you a reveal of the flavor of Mountain Dew's VooDEW 5. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me to reveal the flavor to you all now, Sejohn Sarawik. Sejohn!
Hey, everybody. So I just want to say that I was very, very proud of my shit palette last week. For a lot of reasons. In fact, because I didn't quite land on the flavor, and we'll talk about that in 2 seconds. But I do want to, just for anybody that kind of hazily remembers last week, Sejohn, for instance. So what had happened is that we talked about the possible flavors. I had mentioned that it was something like a gummy candy akin to something like an Airhead, like a taffy. And I even said the actual exact flavor in the conversation, but didn't land on that as my choice. My choice was mystery flavor Airhead, which was the infamous blue packaged white Airhead that they.
Oh, there wasn't a white package. I don't know, blue package. What are you talking about?
The mystery Airhead, came in a blue packaging.
Oh, not for me. It came in a white wrapper.
Oh, so it was blue with white lettering at one point, and then at some point they swapped that to white with blue lettering.
Okay,
it was white and blue were the colors for the mystery Airhead flavor.
Okay,
right.
But before we go any further, just as a heads up, today you learned, the white mystery flavor is leftover flavorings that can't make a full batch. So they don't know what it's going to taste like. That's why they call it mystery.
Devon, I don't often do this on this show for a multitude of reasons, including that normally I can read this, and I'm surprised I can't right now. But you need to tell me this instant whether or not you're bullshitting us.
What do you mean?
Are you saying this is like a truth, or are you saying this is like a Devon?
No, that's a truth. That's a truth. That's why, because it's really crazy.
How can they do that? How can they legally do that? At some point, somebody says to them, we need to be fully aware of what's in this so that you're not like poisoning kids. And part of the process is you just dump in a bunch of chemicals at the end and hope for the best. That seems like a weird process.
Well, because it's not that. So the ingredients on the white one, I would imagine, just includes all of the. Well, no, they get away with natural and artificial flavors. So what it is it's like, oh, we're making a batch of Airheads today, and then at the end of Airhead Day,
there have to be considerations of like amounts and stuff though too. Like it's not just what is going into it, but how much of it. It's part of the reason why there can be an acceptable amount of like bug parts in everything.
Yeah,
they're like,
thank you.
Well,
for
as long
that.
as it's under 0.5%, then we don't give a shit, right? Like that kind of thing. So like I. It's just that is a, but I mean it's buck wild on so many stands, not least of which is like the safety concern. But then also on top of all of that, just like the pride in your product concern. Like what if it comes out? I mean, like there are literally jelly beans in this world that taste like vomit. Like what happens if you accidentally? Do you just roll with it?
No, so it's when they're making Airheads. So there are like the 6 flavors of Airheads. Well, there might be 7. Cherry, grape, blue raspberry, green apple.
Those flavors are all made by
watermelon and orange.
Who the fuck? If you add the watermelon and orange flavoring together, suddenly you get the T virus. Like what? You don't know?
I imagine that they did some stuff beforehand. But yeah, it's not like they're doing it at the beginning. It's not like, oh, we're putting in full flavor. It's the runoff in the flavor tubes at the end. We're going to dump into this white one and call it a mystery flavor. Otherwise, we're wasting material. Your fear on this is insane to me. I love it.
You're recycling. There you go, kids. It's just recycling. So the moral of the story is I was so fucking damn close. Like I cannot believe that I said cherry Airheads in the conversation and then settled on the mystery flavor. However, I will also point out that I stand by what you and I said at the end of that episode, at the end of that conversation, is the part of the reason why is because of the mystery aspect of it, right? Like that whole like white, milky, murky concept of what is this flavor just automatically landed on the same thing in the Airheads variety. So I don't feel too bad about where I landed. But yeah, cherry Airheads, everybody. That was the big reveal that apparently everybody but me knew, I guess.
Well, not everybody but you, because we have some guesses, and I'll share those now. But I will say, at some time in your life, you've had a white mystery Airhead that tasted like a cherry Airhead. So, like, you can't, you're technically incorrect because the flavor agent that they put in is specifically the flavor agent that they put into cherry Airheads. But just
All right, I
due
like
to
this
the
prestige.
nature of it,
Okay, yeah,
like,
okay, yeah.
and the fact that it's that white mystery color for the VooDEW, like, why wouldn't that trigger that memory of sometime in your life, like 6-year-old Sejohn eats a white Airhead and goes, "Oh, this tastes like cherries."
Well, you want to know the big secret about Airheads is like, for me, I don't eat them. When I don't know if it like came across when I was talking about this, but like the mystery Airheads were like kind of the only ones I ever ate because there was that whole marketing ploy of like, what flavor is this? It could be anything, right? So like, of course I tried that because I was a kid, right? Like I was like, I'm not gonna not fall for that bullshit. But otherwise, taffies were not my favorite growing up. Like as a kid that had shit teeth, like taffies were just kind of like a cruel joke of candy for me.
I don't know what to tell you there. I freaking loved Airheads. We'd go to the penny candy store.
Look, I'm not going to stand here and shit on it. Like I had it. Airheads were always a phenomenal thing to get on Halloween because they were great bank for me to get better shit from other people. Like Airheads clearly are a fine candy, and anybody other that eats Airheads is a good person. This is not me shitting on people that eat Airheads.
All right. And just this from the internet, the flavors of Airheads are cherry, strawberry, orange, green apple, watermelon, blue raspberry, grape, and then mystery flavor. So I missed strawberry. I don't think I've ever had a strawberry Airhead. I got to be honest with you. But that penny candy store, it was 25 cents for an Airhead. So I was always like, I'll get, 20 Swedish Fish, 15 fruity Tootsie Rolls, and then I'll always make sure to have that quarter left over to get an Airhead. And then the white one.
I was always like a sour or a gimmick. Like if something was sour, I would get it immediately. But then the very next thing was if I couldn't find enough things that were sour, I'd go for the most gimmicky shit you could find. Oh, yeah. That's a candy stick that you dip in sugar candy and just eat it all. Yes, give me that. Oh, that's a baby bottle that you then dip in more candy and eat it. Yeah, give me that. Like if there was a gimmick, I was always on board to try it.
Well, I didn't realize
that when they came out with those sour liquid candies that were just like basically tubes of toothpaste that you just squeezed into your mouth.
That was a candy that we ate as kids. Oh God, I don't know. I understand why you had teeth problems. Is what I can say. But yeah, sour warheads. Remember warheads? I remember years later, yes. They're like, they're so sour. And I'm like, I used to eat these when I was a kid. I popped 2 in my mouth. I was at a party with like a bunch of older dudes. And they're like,
that was always the thing. How many can you fit in your mouth, right? Like,
and I'm like, oh yeah, warheads. And I just grabbed 2 and threw them in my mouth. And they're like,
not fit in your mouth, but how many can you stand?
The intensity. And they're like, you're going to die. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to die. I've had every flavor of warhead in this mouth at the same time. That
so I don't
didn't
know if
kill
this
me.
is just like, I don't know if this is just like confirmation bias or just around me or something, but it seems like warheads are still huge, like right, and out here in Mormon land where everybody has 6 kids, Halloween is a huge deal. We've talked about that before. One of the side effects of that is all of the grocery stores all have giant bins of essentially penny candy, but what they're expecting and what happens is people are buying it like 3 pounds of candy for Halloween,
pick and mix, right?
Have right. So Warheads is in that, and I love it. Every year I always grab a handful of Warheads, and Swedish Fish and stuff too. But like Warheads is definitely the first thing I go for. But ever since I've been out here, and honestly in past memory, I can't think of the last time I saw just a normal ass Warhead. They're all those extreme ones now. But like, is that just relabeling, or like, what the hell is that?
Because it's when Mr. Pibb went to Pibb Extreme. It was the same soda. It was just being marketed for the 90s.
Pibb
Warheads,
Extra, right?
What?
Pibb Extra was theirs.
Yeah, Pibb Extra.
That's like and that's actually like the standard Mr. Pibb now.
Yeah, there's no Mr. Pibb anymore. It's just Pibb Extra, but it's still Mr. Pibb. Like the old school Pibb heads, we still call it Mr. Pibb. Sorry. I remember the first time I had Mr. Pibb, I was in North Carolina, and it blew my mind. This is Dr. Pepper, but from Coca-Cola. Yeah. It's crazy. Sorry. But yeah, Warheads just rebranded themselves as Extreme Warheads and have stayed that way.
I assumed as much because like you're saying, like I used to just pop like 2 or 3 of them in my mouth at a time, and people would be like, "What are you doing?" You're like, "You're gonna get sick," or like worse, like some people were convinced that like you were literally going to like pass out or something from too much sour, and I was like, I just really like sour, and I found myself a couple of weeks ago doing the same thing with the Warheads quote unquote extremes, and I was like, have I just become more powerful? But no, apparently not.
No, it's just you and me. Warheads, formerly Mega Warheads, brand of sour or tart candy manufactured by Impact Confections, marketed as an extreme candy with intense sour flavor. Very popular, especially with young children. In 1999, Warheads were referred to as a $40 million brand.
Oof,
That's
man.
crazy, because I don't think I've ever paid more than a penny for a Warhead.
Yeah, but you gotta remember, like warheads are they're the original like TikTok food challenge, right? Like that idea that you were talking about, where like we used to sit around on the playground and be like, I bet you can't put three in your mouth, or I bet you can't put three in your mouth for 2 minutes, or something like that, right? Like we would always figure out ways to like try and top each other, and so we would do that and it was always warheads. Like we would get them from the school store because the school store sold really kick-ass looking erasers that I couldn't afford and warheads that I could. And so guess what all of my mom's money went to every time she gave me money for the school store?
Well, arguably, I think you made the better choice, because those erasers tasted terrible.
I did also get a really badass Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles folder once too. That was pretty cool. It was on clearance. I so yeah, like warheads are like that original like thing that like kids used to like trade on doing that shit, and then it eventually is what leads to stuff like I bet you can't eat a spoonful of cinnamon and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
Like that, and like I mean, this is going to be a sidebar, but something I feel like everybody's doing right now, and I feel like I want to do it too. I'm going to take a stance on this right now. Food challenges are fucking dumb. Don't hurt yourself doing something super food. Like,
The only
I know that
food
there's some ones that like got
challenges-
blown up that just weren't true. Like the Tide Pod shit was something that actually never fucking happened. But everybody lost their minds about kids eating Tide Pods for the TikTok challenge. But like, there are some out there that are real and are still not fucking great for you. Like these like mukbangs and food challenge shit that just like back the fuck off. Don't hurt yourself in the long. Like you, 30-year-old you will thank 16-year-old you for not eating an entire bag of warheads in one sitting.
Yeah, as somebody who did that, I mean, I'm 73 sweet tarts. That's forever going to be a thing that I did, and
And
I
two ulcers to thank for it.
actually I have none. Thank you. I'm just not stressed. I'm super zen. I think it's because I saw the face of God the day I ate all those sweet tarts.
Well, that's the. I mean, right? Eventually, you have so much poison that you become immune to it.
Yep, I can't. Well, I guess I
man.
can. It's in the book too. Ibocaine powder. Iocane
All right,
powder.
are we still talking about Airheads for a bit,
Yeah,
or what?
well,
'Cause
well, I do want to share some of the other guesses that we got.
Oh yeah. No, we had some guest
one
interactions,
listener-
and we
one
should
listener-
definitely-
Luden's cough drops. To go back to Reagan's guess from last week. Thank you for that, Reagan. You were close because it's very cherry flavored. It's not very
That is such a
menthol-y.
phenomenal. Here's the thing, though. That is such a. Yes. What a wild. Imagine if they came out next year and it's like this one is like Halls with menthol.
Oh man, my throat feels so good after drinking VooDEW 6.
Just drinking Vicks. What is this?
Which again, Claude was like, it's cherry something from my youth, but I cannot pin it down. And I think that one might have driven him mad.
I mean, I think that might be the next ad campaign for Airheads.
Right? And then the last one we
That was
got.
poetic. I really liked it. I honestly did.
The last one we got, I didn't get permission to use his name, so I'll make sure to get that, but I will share his guess. He's like, I think it's red Tootsie Pops. And this is taste unseen, going based off of only our explanation of it. He's like, I'm going to go with Tootsie Pop Red.
That's look. You did the right thing. You heard all of the information. You went in the right realm, but at the last second, you said, "I'm not going to end this race with you two bozos," and that's always a good bet.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if there were chocolate in there, I'd be very happy, as I said last week. But that's it on VooDEW and Airheads. No, I'd like you to describe to the class how the package I sent to you of cherry Airheads arrived.
Yeah,
it
so
was
in order
chilling,
to
Sejohn.
celebrate the discovery of this flavor, Devon sent me a package, and he said, "When you get it, you'll open it up, and then you'll know the answer. All will become true and obvious."
Revealed.
So I get this package in the mail, and it's just a regular USPS one of the quick envelopes, the like cardboard envelopes that they sell that you usually put like documents in, but that's not what was in this. Instead, what was inside was a loose box of 36 cherry airheads. And what I mean by loose is there was a box, but none of the airheads were in it. They had all just gone all over inside the package. And then the
Jeez.
package itself had been folded and mushed and pushed into my mailbox in like the most classic like sitcom-y fashion of like what the hell were they thinking? So I open up this package and out falls a mishmash of 36 loose airheads, and then I reach inside the package and pull out the box they were supposed to be in. So I put them all down on my counter, looked at it, and said, and the first thought I had was, well, I guess this is Devon's thing, and then the second thought was, man, I hope so, because otherwise I have to call the police.
The craziest thing about that, first of all, I forgot to change the name. I always kind of put a goofy name, Sejohn goofy name, and I kept it as Sejohn Joe from when I sent you the Swarm Troopers from the Action Force. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. This is just like meant to be a quick and dirty, and like you can't buy a single airhead anywhere online. And that makes sense, but also, like...
You can't just mail a man an airhead nowadays.
And I didn't want to do it, so I went through Amazon, which is the scariest part of all of that, is that
Wait. I'm sorry, but I'm stuck on you trying to mail me a single airhead, and all I can think is, like, isn't that the whole bit about the potato, right? Like, they tell you that if you just write an address on a potato and throw it in a mailbox, the USPS will just have to deliver it.
I've never
right?
heard
and
that
as long
before.
as the right postage is on it, as long as there's a stamp on it, right?
I've never heard that before, but that...
I'm not making this up. This is a common kind of... I would call it folklore, except I have a friend that actually sent us a potato once just to like be cute, and it worked. So like, I know it works. As long as you have the right amount of postage for the weight of the potato itself, and you have the proper address and return on it, like it's full postage. Like they will send it, and they. And now I just think about you just doing that with just a single airhead, getting the right postage on it, and just getting my name on it, and then just sending it off.
I mean, I would have put it in an envelope. I'm not a monster. I respect the USPS a little bit. You just send a potato? I mean, why aren't people doing it?
I'm Googling potato mail.
Let me tell you, that's how you send people, like, documents.
Oh,
right?
There's, like, companies. There are straight-up companies that you can pay to do this for you. It's such a common thing.
Oh, that's...
PotatoParcel.com.
All right, we're done. We're done with this. I can't...
AnonymousPotato.com. Mailaspud.com. This is amazing.
Why? Why is this a thing that exists in the year 2023? People can't afford healthcare or housing, but people are shipping each other random potatoes?
More than one company that does it. It's like there's actual competition in the market for it.
I can't go down this potato hole with you. All I want to do is go down this potato hole and figure out which one has the best deal on shipping a potato. Honestly, it should all be the same price, right? Any additional cost is just labor on their end.
Oh my god.
I'm
sorry.
I don't know. I just don't
know. Mailed potato flavored Mountain Dew coming next year for VooDEW.
We mailed ourselves potatoes from our factory in California to our factory in Paramus, New Jersey, and then we mashed them down. You know, that's how you make vodka. So I don't know.
I was going to say, hey, are you guys just making vodka? No.
No. Mixes well with vodka, though.
Yes, it's called Mountain Dew Spiked, but it's non-alcoholic.
That's hard Mountain Dew. So I think we've given more than enough time to Mountain Dew and airheads. Thanks to everybody who sent out their guesses. It's still out there. In fact, it's out there and easier to find than ever before.
Yeah. I'm so happy that you're able to get some now because it is a pretty decent for a gimmick soda, like or a novelty soda. Man, I got down a rabbit hole on that sort of thing too because of your task. Thanks you very much. But yeah, I like out of all of the dumb ones that they've done, this is the first one that feels like it's silly enough to justify all of the stupidity around it, right? Like there's never been a good punchline to these, and that's because the flavors have always been either too legitimate, like you could have just done this as a flavor of Mountain Dew, or like so bizarre, like the gingerbread one was weird.
Well,
Because,
gingerbread
like,
was just that was a different thing. That wasn't voodoo.
right. Well, no, but
Yeah.
the mystery flavor, like reflavoring thing that they do,
Yeah.
that Mountain Dew, the gimmick sodas. That's, like I said, like whenever they do one of these gimmicks, they usually don't stick the landing. This one is kind of perfect for the dumb marketing ploy that it is. This is like the reveal that it's with a different company, the reveal that it's something that everybody out there has a soft spot for an Airhead, right? Like, even if you don't eat them, even if you haven't eaten one in 30 years, there's still a part of you that remembers when you had that, right?
Right. I mean, everybody who's eaten an Airhead is 0.05% Airhead, just due to the very nature of how it works.
I mean, according to their ad campaign from the early 2000s, your head became a balloon.
Exactly. And then you could, let's play Battleheads. Those are the weirdest commercials. They're still selling Airheads on, if you eat it, your head becomes a balloon and flies off your body. No. Yeah. Why would I want that? Why would I eat your candy?
I'll be giving out a bunch of Airheads for Halloween this year is the real moral of the story.
Yes.
But I'm so happy to be talking about candy.
I would like, I don't want to like put more on you, but if you could put Say Report labels on them, I mean, that's free marketing. Right there. We have fun here. We have fun here at the Say Report. Which brings me to, I mean, WGA strike is over. Things are starting to get back to normal. SAG-AFTRA still a problem. There's one thing I would like to address, because I still can't wrap my head around it.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Why do the WGA writers on the Drew Barrymore show quit their jobs? Why do they not go back to that job? I don't understand it. Like, that's because the big news, and what's up?
I mean, I wouldn't want to go back to that environment. They tried to replace me with a scab, and I'm in a union that just did so good by me in its negotiations that I'm just like, I have all the reasons in the world to just fall back and go to the union and say, like, I'm clearly not going to go because they scabbed. What can you do to help me? Like, I wouldn't go back.
I appreciate it.
Why would you?
I just don't, because I don't know, she pulled back. I guess episodes were taped. It just feels
you also have to, there were plenty of other shows that didn't.
Yeah.
And
that one I get.
Like, saying that she pulled back is great, but that would have entailed that she first had to do some things. She had to, and again, I said this last week, and I'm going to make this clear. Drew Barrymore, definitely a high person in the chain of command within this show, but there were teams of people that made this decision. So as a writer, you're not just walking into a building where, I have to avoid Drew Barrymore because she tried to scab me during the union. You literally are in an environment where you're surrounded by people that clearly did not give a fuck about you and your job. Like if they had any modicum of care for your position, they would have not allowed that to happen.
To go as far as it did. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
You're in a building full of people that have proven they have no loyalty to you. Why would you go back to that job?
Yeah, okay, so Sejohn sold me on it. It was just one of these things where I heard that, and I'm like, but you got the better things, and now you're like willfully going out and saying I'm going to be unemployed. And hopefully the union can find you work, but if they don't, like, you walked away from a job where you could take advantage of everything you just got in that contract. I guess for me, it's like, don't quit the job you have until you have another job is something that was drilled into my mind for so long. But I mean, I guess the union does protect them. It flabbergasted me. And I knew that if I asked you on the show right now, you would cut to the quick and just give me an answer that totally removes all the sparkle dust from my eyes. And I thank you for doing that.
It's easy to fall into those kinds of thinkings like you're talking about, right? Like after everything you go back to your job and then you just leave. But like there's so much more context around that. And it's exactly why you need unions. You don't need unions for the times when everything makes sense and everything works out. You need the union to step in when things are messy.
True.
When you are leaving a job that otherwise is pretty spectacular for you, but there's a couple of big caveats, the union is the one that makes sure that you have a contract in place that makes sense for those, that there's a safety net to catch you when you step away. Like that is the whole point of the union, is when you are in one of those positions where otherwise it wouldn't make sense to quit. The fact that you have the backing of this entire group behind you gives you the confidence to do what you really truly should do that's best for yourself. Like this is the 101 reason why you would need a union around you. Because if they didn't have a union, imagine if all of this shit had failed, imagine, and then went back. They wouldn't be able to quit, and they'd be forced to work for these people that they now know, like, would otherwise replace them
would
in a
replace
second.
them with something else just because the network code says they can.
Yeah, we don't have contracts in place for when everything works out. You have contracts, and we have understandings, and we have unions, and we have all of this stuff in place for when things need some arbitration. Like, you need somebody to step in and say, sorry, but them's the rules. Right?
I mean, yeah,
that is exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I'm in a union, and they've saved my ass a couple of times, and so I do appreciate that, and I get that part of it. I guess that just seemed like, yeah, you got everything you wanted, and now that you don't have a job, you're not getting it. But you're right, I hadn't considered, like, because it's not just, as much as everybody has made Drew Barrymore the face of that decision, and continues to make her the face of that decision, there are people at the higher ups who are like, yeah, you got to come back. You have a contract, Drew. Like, those don't seem like ideas. What she spouted about people have jobs and we need to get stuff done and I'm under contract. None of that sounds like something that she, like, came to on her own.
No, but some of the stuff that has come out, like the guys, like, walking away from those jobs and stuff, have made it clear. The only thing that's truly clear is how unclear the whole situation is, right? It's really kind of clarified, though, that there was a lot more resentment behind the scenes than we were kind of led to believe, right? Because when we first talked about this, with everything with her bringing the show back and it being weird, but technically they were under different contracts except for these few people, there was kind of a sense that this is a really nice out for Drew Barrymore, the person. If things go to pot, is like, well, like, I didn't want to do this, but contract state we had to do A, B, or C. That has kind of gone out the window when those people now have the opportunity to come back. Because if they were stepping into an environment where they knew everybody there had stuck up for them to the best of their ability, I don't think they'd be so quick to leave. But the fact that every single one of them was like, no, we're out, kind of implies that things were a little bit more murky behind the scenes than we kind of thought at first, right? And part of that is that, you and I specifically, and a lot of people were discussing this, were very guilty of just wanting to kind of give everybody the best benefit of the doubt on this side of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
But as is always the case in those situations, not everybody deserves it, right? And so, we're finding out through this action of these guys leaving that there was probably more people that were being shitty to them than we realized. And, like, how deep that goes, we don't know.
True. And also, it might have been one of those situations where it was 3 WGA writers. They were the only writing staff for the show, based on all the accounts that I could find. And because we're under network code, we don't have to abide by this writer's room minimums and all of the other things that you just got in the contract. So maybe they walked away because we're not going to get to take advantage of all of the things that we were striking for. So, but you did. You cut right through that, sir, and I thank you. And now we can move on to, well, I'm a fucking idiot. A new segment called Devon's a fucking idiot. Do you want to know why I'm a fucking idiot, Sejohn?
Why, Dev?
So I got up this morning at 7 o'clock with the full intention to leave my house by 7:15, and I did this. Do you want to know why I did this, Sejohn?
I mean, I imagine you were just going to get, like, some breakfast, but are you okay?
So, the information released on the internet on Friday that there is a demo of Super Mario Bros. Wonder that is popping up at Target and other demo kiosks of the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So on Friday, I was in 2 Targets, did not see the game, so we decided I want to try the game before we record the show. And I'm going to do that. And the only place I know for a fact that has one of these Switch kiosks is the place where 10 years ago, put that in your brain pipe and smoke it, 10 years ago, I played the Wii U demo of Mario Kart 8. So I'm like, well, I got to get up early, and then I got to get back to the house in order to record. So I got up at 7 to make sure I got to the Target in, I don't even know the name of the area. Hold on one second. Vamp for me, Sejohn, as I look where the Crystal Mall is. I think it's Waterford.
Oh, yeah.
Waterford,
yeah,
Connecticut,
okay.
yeah.
But,
I drive to the Target in Waterford, Connecticut, because it is literally the only Target I know has had demo kiosks for Nintendo systems in the past. It's still a shot in the dark. So I get up there, and lo and behold, they have it. So I have played Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Sejohn. I sit here before you, and I am yelling into the ears of our listeners. I'm sorry, I'm very excited. Having played the game. And number one, I have to just tell you my favorite part about the game so far. You can randomly select a character.
Nice.
I love that. Because obviously I'm probably just going to play as Mario. Or, I usually play as Mario. I was never had to be second player. I played a lot of them single player. Mario's kind of my guy. So, I'm going to just pick Mario. But if I can randomly choose, then it's on the game, right? And the game chose who I'm playing as. So I randomly choose, and it gave me Mario. So I got to play as Mario in the game. I played through 2 full levels, and then I got to the area that's shown in the, was that the last direct of where you can just walk around in the map, and there are a bunch of different levels. I cleared the badge challenge, which that is such a cool way to, give essentially Metroid mechanics and new moves to Mario, is to make you clear a level using that mechanic. Love it. And I mean, it goes back to things like Mario Wings Over the Rainbow, right? Like the wing cap and that. Here's a little level where you use it and you have to hit the switch to get it.
Yeah, you have to do it this way in order to get the star, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So that was awesome. And then I started playing the hardest difficulty level available in that open area, and I got about halfway through before, and good on Nintendo for this, the game resets and says thank you for playing. There's a hidden timer to the demo, so I couldn't have just sat there and played every level that was available. I was really impressed by that.
So this demo,
yes,
only available in stores?
Only available in stores. They'd be stupid not to bring it home.
Yeah.
And even with the hidden timer, so you can't play forever, right? And it's not one of these things where, once you hit a certain time in the game, once you hit a certain, hidden checkpoint, we're going to reset the game. You could just play the first level over and over and over again until it felt like about 15 minutes, if I'm, being honest, maybe 20 before the game reset itself. And they should bring it home. The other nice thing is, and I hope this is actually in the game, because it was one of the greatest things in terms of the heads-up display on a Mario World map that I have ever seen. And that is, it had up in the corner how many Wonder Seeds you have, and then below it, there's a lock with how many you need in order to progress. And that was 99. That was set to 99. And with the 5 levels that are available, you're never going to get to 99. So, it would be a way to, really test out this game and build momentum for the game. I hope they bring it home. I don't think it would cannibalize sales the way that maybe demos have done in the past. Or they could do what they did with their other demos for the DS and the 3DS, where you can only play the demo 15 times and then it deletes itself and you can't re-download it. They could really do a lot of wonderful things, pardon the pun, if they release this demo to home. I really
that's awesome. I'm glad that you were able to get your hands on it. I am super excited to play it. I guess my thing is I don't know who isn't sold on a Mario game anymore. You know
right,
what I mean?
Exactly. So that's the thing, is that the demo, it just builds hype for it. And if there were someone out there who's a little on the fence, I'll wait, you give them the demo, they're not going to be able to wait. Because the reason why this is the Devon is a fucking idiot segment of the episode today is the next 12 days are going to be torture for me. Because I've touched and played with it. I've seen how good the controls are, how responsive it is, what it's like to be a wowie zowie elephant. all I want to do is play the game. All I'm thinking through is like, oh, what am I going to do next time? Like when I get to that level, I should play through as a different character in the beginning, and then blah, 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 blah. Like my mind is racing with all of this Mario stuff that I want to accomplish now, and I have to wait till the 20th to actually do that, unless they do release a demo, and I think they should. Like what? They released the demo. Another game had a demo, and I'm like, why would that? Like Pikmin, and you can bring your progress forward? Oh my god, let me bring my progress forward from the Mario Brothers Wonder demo. Like, oh my god. There's even more incentive to get the game right away.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hands up. I hope it happens.
I'm excited to play it myself, and I'm curious, like with the randomization stuff, like how deep it goes. Could you not accidentally? I mean, this is by its very nature. Could you randomly end up with like Nabbit? Isn't Nabbit one of the big...
So the random is based on all of the characters who are available on that screen. So like choosing random, I could have gotten one of the 4 Yoshi colors or Nabbit. A character who's invulnerable and is really meant to like represent the easy mode for the game,
right?
Or like a lower difficulty mode. I'm not trying to insinuate anything when I say. Well,
no, in a weird way, I think them including him in that randomization kind of shows their stance on that exact comment, right? Is like, no, we just see him as viable a character as the rest of them, just because he has these abilities that allow for certain less stressful playthroughs of the game, shall we say? Right? Like it's an interesting admission on their part that they would include Nabbit at that level if he is. Like I said, we've got to play around with it a little bit. I wonder how deep it goes.
Yeah, I'm excited to test on that. I mean, also Nintendo's not stupid. We all act like Nintendo is stupid and in their ivory tower and doesn't really care what's going on with their games, but they saw with the Funky Kong mode that was added to Tropical Freeze in the Switch re-release of that game, that is what birthed the speedrunning insanity for that game. When you have a character who, like, he can double jump and he essentially has all of the powers of Diddy, Dixie, and Cranky Kong. And he's immune to spikes. So then suddenly these people who've been playing the game, but they're like, oh, but like some of the stuff just makes it not fun to speedrun. That eliminates all those problems. So whether that was by design of Nintendo or Nintendo's like, we're going to make this easier character because we heard the complaints that this game was too difficult. So here's Funky Kong to play in this different way where it's not going to be as stressful for you. You can just have fun with the game. And then, bonus, a bunch of people are buying our game and trying to beat it as fast as possible. Like...
Well, I mean, like, especially in the context of the larger scheme of Nintendo's history with this exact conversation, where they literally were at a point in the early 90s where they developed a concept called Nintendo Hard in order to make sure that people couldn't finish their games on, like, rentals and stuff, something we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But, like, that idea that in our lifetime, in the last 30 years, they have gone from being, staunchly holding that belief all the way to the point where we're now talking about them, like, upwardly like supporting like these characters and modes in these games that just completely kind of eliminate challenge in these ways. It's an interesting kind of flip.
Yeah. And I dig, because I will admit, Contra 3, the Alien Wars on Super Nintendo, it really pisses me off that you have to beat it on hard mode to get the full story. Like, that has always been something that bothered me. And then, years later, when I played the Japanese release of that game and saw, oh, no, you could just fight the boss on any difficulty level, like, that was more fun. It's more fun playing co-op if it's not hard as balls, but we want to see the ending of Contra. We don't want to see, like, half of Contra. We want to play the full game together.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It is something exciting, and the game is really good. But I'm a fucking idiot for going out and trying it. I should have just been like, no, you could wait. But now I'm like, I can't wait to play it again. It's like crack sieging.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I got to take advantage of, I don't know, the last time you've been in a Target, and then even one step beyond that, the last time you've been in a toy section in a Target. It feels like something's happening here, and what it is not exactly clear, because they are clearancing out items at an alarming rate.
It might be trying to make room for some stuff for the holiday season. Don't forget, we are
Yeah,
getting close to that.
I know. It's just like I know there are refreshes. Like when there are refreshes happen, that's a very like known thing in the community. But the Shipwreck GI Joe figure, he released. I'm gonna say at the beginning of last month. I got him for $12 today. That's more than 50% off his MSRP, and I'm not complaining, right?
I wonder if they made some deal with somebody and they're going to need to do some shifting around of the toy section before Christmas. Like if they made some deal with some movie or some or some company and they're going to get like they're the ones that get to carry the not PF Schwartz. What's the toy store?
FAO Schwartz.
Yeah, I don't know where PF Chang. That's
PF Chang's.
Basically combined.
Basically, you combined FAO Schwartz and PF Chang's into FAO Schwartz, where you could get Chinese toys with lots of spice.
I didn't really like their last album so much. I felt that Party Rock was pretty good.
Nice.
But yeah, so they're the ones that have to deal with FAO Schwartz, right? So like a whole section becomes that. I'm not saying that that's what they're making room for. I wonder if there's somebody else that they've maybe partnered with. So you may be right. There might be something that's coming down the pipe.
I think something's coming down the pipe. It's weird. And then, I mean, it also feels weird because Hasbro has so many deals in place with them for like limited edition Target only stuff. And I've started seeing that. They have a 4-pack of Transformers figures that by all accounts should be $100 based on the molds that are in it, and they're selling it for $70.
Yeah.
And like
maybe you might be able to explain this to me. I was at a festival yesterday.
Okay.
And I went into a tent there. There's vendors all over the place. And the big thing, I don't know, like it feels like this has been the case for the last few years. Like even pre-COVID and stuff, is it feels like every festival that I go to nowadays, every vendor has the same fell off the back of a truck bullshit, and or there's some corporate vendor and they're just giving out like frisbees with like Verizon written on them or some shit. Like there's just never been the festivals have gone downhill. But anyway, this is kind of part of that. Like I go into this tent and it's the same shit that every other tent has, except they had one whole table. From like one big lifetime folding table from tip to toe, covered in these 8-packs of Sonic Forces? Yeah, Sonic Forces.
Sonic Forces or Sonic Prime? Because Sonic Prime is the big one right now. It's a streaming show on Netflix, and the toy stuff blowing me away. We want to talk about like what I saw on Target, and we're kind of like, why is the only section that stocked Sonic toys?
Okay, so this was legitimately like fell off the back of a truck, and this is the big thing right now. You can buy this here at this festival for it was like $12 for like 8 characters, like pretty nice like sized vinyl like characters.
Yeah, I've been seeing those in stores. I mean, it's just the thing. It's if you can get out, a lot of the stuff is available. That's the grossest thing. So there were a bunch of things that were announced. Like everything has a con now. What you're talking about is like every festival has this. Also, every toy company and every big box store has their cons, which is short convention, but really feels like confidence game to me. Because Hasbro Pulse Con happened like 3 Fridays ago.
Oh, they literally every line just has their own convention to go to see their new shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, it feels a little bit like what happened to E3 that it no longer exists, but what it split up into is every company now
doing their own thing. That has extended to toys as well, so you're not crazy to say that. And things that they showed off at Hasbro PulseCon, and they're like, it's coming soon, has already been bought on eBay. Because they exist, they're just like holding it to, make sure they sell off the stock that's currently out there, have enough time to... And also, Hasbro Pulse, that website, despite it being basically Hasbro's direct seller, it's still technically a retailer. You're not buying at wholesale. And if you want something, you don't get it from Hasbro Pulse because you're going to be waiting 2 or 3 more months until you get it. But if you walk into a Walmart or a Target, it's already on the shelves. It's It's weird. It's very strange how toy collecting and like the collectibles market in what was before for kids has sort of borrowed from the collecting pitfalls of comics, of games, of movies.
Yeah.
And it seems to be in the wake of the pandemic where there was this, because of the supply chain, scarcity. And then they came back too fucking hard to the fact that stuff was clearance the week it came out. Like, it came out clearanced because Target was expecting the next thing. But all this stuff that they're doing now, it's like, I don't know what's coming down the line, but, you know, the 60th anniversary Avengers figures that were like big boxes, $50 was like the minimum, other than like an Iron Man figure. That's his first appearance suit. And those, like, $50 is the base for those prices. And that Iron Man's like $30. But still, they all ended up selling for like less than $30 because we need this space. But they made the deal to carry that stuff. I don't get it. And then they also have the private vendors like NECA, which I know what that stands for, but I don't want to say it. I can't remember it right now to say it. They had a whole issue where toys that literally were dropped before their street date were out on the shelf and then clearanced out at less than $10. And that's why NECA's like, no, you don't touch this stuff. We are a vendor that is essentially like a consolidation store, right? Where my stuff is in there. Like, we are consolidators. You're renting us out the shelf space, and we will handle that on our own. Don't have your staff, you know, freaking front that stuff. Don't have them stock that stuff. We will have a representative go out twice a week to do that.
Yeah.
Because they fucked them. They totally fucked them by selling. It was a Casey Jones from the Mirage stuff in a red shirt and jeans, as opposed to the gray shirt and like sweatpant colored pants that was out there. But because they wanted to get rid of those Casey Jones so that all that was on the shelf was the new classic color Casey Jones, they clearanced that guy out, and they ended up just clearancing all the Casey Jones out. So they were put out on the shelf beforehand, and this figure that was supposed to be like their big drive for their Collecticon, right, their fall geek out, was supposed to, that was the only new turtle figure that was coming out, was on the shelves before the release date of September 29th, and was sold at a dramatic discount despite being brand new product. Like, they just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Honestly. Because toys used to just be like a novelty, to borrow the word you keep using in this episode, that these stores carried, and then, like, we don't have to think about them. You couldn't call and talk to somebody in the toy department the way you could talk to somebody in, like, electronics.
Yeah, right. If you needed, like, advice from somebody that knew the biz at all, right?
Yeah. I don't know. Sorry, it's been a weird thing, because we're going to move forward. I'm sure you have things to talk about as well. This has been weird for me because Friday I had to take my father to a doctor's appointment, and then I had 3 hours to kill, and like you can't go in there, right? Like, because they're like, we're trying to keep it at minimum. Only patients come in, so I have 3 hours to kill. So I'm out in the world doing things that I haven't done for like 3 years because of the pandemic, just trying to kill time, and it made me remember, like, how much every building that you drive by in the world has shit going on inside of it. I just became so insular in the pandemic, and like, so this is what I'm doing. Right over there,
Dev. Do the drugs just kick in? What are you?
No. Like, well, we ended up going out because we were out already, and he's like, I'd like to go to a bar, get a drink. We ended up going to Twin Oaks because his doctor's in Cranston, and like, at freaking 2:30 on a Friday, that place is jumping. I don't think about that place being jumping at 2:30 on a Friday. I think that people are going to be at their
special.
jobs.
What are you talking about? You got to get those early birds in.
I don't know. And it was fun. And it was like a nice reminder that, like, oh yeah, life is still going on. I've just been like trying to protect my father to not get sick and then, make things harder for him or make things harder for me by getting sick. But it was this weird reminder that like life goes on and life has been going on in a way that like I wasn't fully ready to like face. But I'm kind of happy that I've done it now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're in this weird space now where like COVID is still a thing. Like there's definitely still reasons that you should be taking precautions when you can. But there's also this other side of it where the world seems to have just kind of just kept going. And like at some point you need to decide which side of the game you're on, And it's not been easy because like I said, like COVID is still out there and other shit. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is like we all got really caught up on how to take care of ourselves when it came to COVID-19, which is great. But like I feel like people seem to just not realize that like there's always been things we should be protecting ourselves. We like if you get the flu, all right, like please mask up. Like we don't just mask just for COVID. We should be masking for other reasons, or like wash your hands thoroughly all the time, like things like that. There's you have to and so life in general is that balancing act, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're just kind of falling into that with COVID. We're getting closer.
Right, and that's what I don't know. It's just I know it's been super politicized, the whole mask thing of it all, but outside of the evidence regarding whatever with COVID, I mean, the numbers when there was a mask mandate and you were supposed to wear a mask everywhere for all of those other diseases that you just mentioned, like the flu, also went down. Yeah. Like, that's quantifiable, empirical evidence that, like, wearing a mask keeps germs from spreading.
I mean, like, this is a crazy conversation because, like, we know that they do. Why do you think doctors wear them when you're in for surgery? Why do you think they're not just all up in your fist without a mask on? Like, would you feel confident if you were sitting there in front of a doctor that was about to open up your chest and he just talking to you, just free? Like, no, I would suddenly be like, hey, at some point though, you're gonna cover that up though, right?
Oh, yeah. I only drink the Slurpee beforehand. I won't be taking sips of the Slurpee while I'm inside of you. That came out wrong.
I was gonna say. All right.
Yeah. So what do you have anything to talk about before we get to our homework for this week?
Oh, we're running out of time. We got to get to the homework. We got to talk about. I want to talk about what we did this week.
Yeah. So we're gonna start it off with music, and then we're gonna end Alone in the Dark. Because I got a lot to say on that one. So the task from me was to find 3 spooky songs, 3, which I know it's redundant, but it's super funny to me every time I say it. Like, it feels like...
Justify it, just ride with it.
It's like an old wizard talking, right? 3 spooky songs, 3 for me to pass to the jetty. So I asked Sejohn to find, like, 3 spooky songs for Halloween. And I'm going to ask him to kick it off before we start to sharing.
Yeah, man. So this is part of this is the rabbit hole that I fell down. Like, I was trying to figure out what constitutes like a spooky like song, like because you didn't say Halloween song, right? You said like spooky song for the spooky season.
All right, if it helps anyway, the song that immediately jumped to mind for me was "Spooky" by the Atlanta Rhythm Section, because that song's spooky. And I mean, I just want to get it out there. I have 3 other songs, but like, that's where my mind jumped to when I gave you the task.
Well, so like, there are songs that I relate to this season. There are songs that I think are spooky. There are songs that I think are kind of like, if I was at a party at this time of year and this song came on in the background, I don't even know if I would clock it or be offended by it, or possibly even I might enjoy it, right? Like this is the right time of the year for this, right? Like that kind of thing, right? So that's kind of where I landed. Is I was like if I heard this song on the radio today at this point in this season, would I get that kind of like vibe? Like, yeah, this is the right time for this, right? So with that in mind, like I found that I was just looking at just some good fucking music because number 1 on my list is Warren Zevon, man, Werewolves of London.
Nice, that is solid. I love that choice.
Yeah. So Werewolves of London is a great fucking song, and Zevon it's Zevon's biggest hit, like quantifiably, like was the highest he ever got on the Billboard for the longest amount of time. Like and what's wild about it is that like it's not, he doesn't dislike the song, like he doesn't feel like offended by it, like when it's the song that people remember him for. He's just like, I have other music, right? But like there is this idea that I guess he wrote it like, so there's a movie, Werewolves of London, right? And this has nothing to do with that, other than that movie had come out and somebody was like, man, it'd be really funny to write like a old rock and roll style dance, so like do everybody do the Werewolf of London, right? Like that kind of thing. And so Warren Zevon like and his friends all got drunk one night while his wife like wrote down the lyrics that they were just like making up as they were all just like laughing, right? And that was it. They were never gonna like make the song. Other people before Warren Zevon actually started playing it in concert. I think like T-Bone Walker or somebody got a hold of it, like, or T-Bone Burnett, I mean. So other people got a hold of the song before Zevon finally just like recorded it. And then it shot to like pretty high on the top 40 list. It was not number one. It was never, I don't even think it was in the top 10, but like for Warren Zevon and his solo career, right? And I'm pretty sure, is this the one that I'm trying to remember who else was in his group when he records this one too, because Warren Zevon does a lot of recording by himself, but he also works a lot with Fleetwood Mac, right? Yeah, I think this is the one that has Mick Fleetwood and John McVie on it. So so this is it's got a phenomenal like bag up to it as well, and it's also just a fucking great song.
Here's the reason I didn't pick Werewolves of London. First of all, I figured it was gonna happen regardless. When it's you and me talking about kind of spooky songs, because like this is the one that Adam Sandler covered in his tribute to Warren Zevon after he passed away.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if you've heard that version of it.
I have. Like, I love that version. Yes. Yeah,
like this song is so the Say Report.
It's live.
I'm
right?
like
the Sandler one is a live version.
Oh no, he has both. He has a live version of it that is excellent.
I've heard that the live version is the one I'm familiar with.
There's a nice studio version of it too. So, like, that's worth looking out there, too. But, like, it is... Warren, I mean, it's a great song. And I think of so many things that I can't talk about right now.
Right? That's going to be the problem with a lot of this stuff is, like, man, this makes me think of this thing that we can't mention. Yeah. No, I hit that with, I mean, Burt Bacharach does, I will put it this way. He does a song titled The Theme from the Block.
Yeah.
And it's like it's this awesome like bop, but I was just like, I can't in good conscience talk about this song right now. Also, it's not high on my list. It's just, it would be a fun one to talk about. But yeah, there's a ton like that throughout this whole like project. I was just like, shit, every single song I'm finding, I would have to talk about in the context of up to and including what I did put on this list. That we're gonna. Am I gonna do all of mine, or do you want to do one of yours?
Well, I would like to do one of mine. I'd like to trade off if that's all right with you.
Yeah, go.
So for my first song, let's see if you can get it off of this. Did you get it from that? Was it?
Is it Witch Doctor by Alvin and the Chipmunks?
No, that was on my short list of songs. But is the Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult?
Nice.
I like a clucking tongue is very close to a cowbell. I mean, close enough for radio usually. I love this.
I don't know. I feel like I need more clucking tongue.
Would you say you have a fever? And I think this is where we're veering. Yeah, it's like that song's so good. It's such a good song, and you don't really think of it as a Halloween song, but in terms of like a spooky song, Blue Oyster Cult is up there on stage singing about death and how it's coming for us all.
Well, and there's like a music video for that one too.
Oh yeah, that's
like that's also pretty on the spot creepy. Like I mean, it pretty much follows the story of the song if I'm remembering correctly. But this is not just a fever dream in my head.
But also, you think about like what makes a song a spooky song, and that's going to be a thing that I bring up a lot. But like, it's a lot of minor chords in that. It's a lot of dissonant tones.
My dude, I'm so glad this is the page that you're on because, man, like, but Don't Fear the Reaper, Blue Oyster Cult, phenomenal. And really, yeah. So that idea that like you're saying, like the way that the tones all work, the way that it just kind of. It just feels like it's fun to listen to on like a stormy fall day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Romeo and Juliet are together in eternity. We can be like they are. Oh, okay. So we should kill ourselves? Is that what you're saying, Blue Oyster Cult?
I mean, this rolls right into my second choice.
All right, and what is that?
Donovan, Season of the Witch, man.
Woo-hoo-hoo! Excellent.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
makes me so happy.
Frequently used in film and television, but we won't talk about. But so in a weird way, used so often that I'm not afraid to mention it because now it's just super vague. I'm not pointing anybody towards anything, right?
Exactly. And it's also
but no,
Donovan.
Season of the Witch also. Yeah. So like Season of the Witch is really interesting because it has this whole so he's a UK artist, right?
Yes.
But something happens with the album that Season of the Witch is on, which I believe is Sunshine Sunday or something, Sunshine Superman. And something goes weird with that, and so it can't be released in the UK right away. And actually, what ends up happening is his next album and Sunshine Superman just kind of get packaged together, like mixed together in the UK. So depending on where you are in the world and talking about this, it's a little bit of a different experience because like for the US release at least, which is the only one I'm familiar with, so I don't know if this is true or not on the UK one. It's like it's the number one song on the second side of that. So when you flip that album, like it's just the first song that you hear, and like it is. It's like it's cool and it's psychedelic and it's all of these great things, and he's writing about like his time. The whole album is about his time like in London specifically, and like so there's all this really cool stuff thematically, but this one in particular more than any song, the only song on this album that I think has any like real like darkness to it, which is, you know, considering what the album is about, right? And so this whole idea of like him wandering around the streets of London and feeling like everybody is watching him, he's talking about the paranoia of doing drugs. Like I have always kind of read it as him being high as a fucking kite and him being paranoid. But like that idea that he suddenly starts to see this like creepiness everywhere. Another song that comes close to this, but I chose this one over it is People Are Strange, right? By the Doors, right? But there's this kind of, it's that real world element of the creepiness of feeling like you're being watched, but then layered on top of it is the fantastical, the idea of like this idea of the Season of the Witch, and that's exactly how the fears work, right? And that's exactly how Halloween kind of feeds on everything, and the season kind of feeds on everybody. Is like we're gonna take a nugget of truth of a thing that you are truly scared of, but then we're just gonna go over the top with it. And then like, this song is just like such a great celebration of that.
Yeah, it's fear in Halloween season. It's kind of like an echo chamber. Like you're a little bit afraid of that noise you just heard, but then you realize how dark it is, so it gets magnified back. And it just keeps bouncing and bouncing until we're inventing these fantastical beasts and creatures and like magical users that represent that fear. Solid choice. Which brings me into my not so solid choice, easily the weakest of this, and I have already admitted that like I had Witch Doctor waiting in the wings. Additionally, by Rockwell, Somebody's Watching Me waiting in the wings. And yet for my second song of my three Spooky Songs 3, I went with something a little bit newer. Probably going to be the only 2023 song on this little playlist. Is Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo.
Not a weak choice at all, man.
Have you seen the music video for Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo?
Yes.
How fucking crazy is that music video? What the fuck is happening?
I want to cut that video with shots from, oh man, I can't.
Anything?
Vampire Academy was what I was going to say, but we're going to end that conversation there. Man, I cannot wait until we can talk about some of this shit.
I know, the list grows. But that video is crazy. Like, seriously, pause the show, go watch the video for Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo, and come back to the show. Because it's nuts. And the crazy thing about it is, and like one of the reasons why it wound up on this list is, first of all, I'm not really a big fan of the song. I'm not really a big fan of Olivia Rodrigo either. But she played it so fucking smart by releasing that song in June of 2023, the way that so many beloved Halloween just things have always been released way before they're going to be relevant come October. And then hearing it again this past week, I'm like, well, fuck, she wrote a really good, like, spooky season song, but she needed to make sure that everybody was aware of it so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. And that's what she did. And the other crazy thing is, I had only ever heard it edited before I watched the music video, and the edits to it make it a completely ridiculous song. Because instead of, like, so the end of the chorus, if you haven't heard the song, and again, I'm going to put together a Spotify playlist of this if you want to hear all of these songs that we've mentioned in some sort of order. Maybe you can spin it at your Halloween party, or you can just listen to it for fun when you want something spooky. So the end of the chorus is, you, oh my God, you sank your fangs into me, you're a blood sucker, fame fucker, bleeding me dry like a goddamn vampire. The edited version that has been playing on the radio since June, that I invariably hear at least once every morning as I'm getting ready to leave for work, is you sunk your teeth into me, you're a blood sucker, dream crusher, bleeding me dry like a damn vampire. But without the god before it, it sounds like she's saying a damp vampire. So in my head, first of all, I think of Dampiers, right? The half vampire offspring of a vampire and a human. And then a Dampier. Or like Alucard. And then invariably the next thing is just a wet vampire. Oh, you're so wet. Ugh. And then it's like he's a sponge, maybe?
No. See, like, vampires can't cross water, so a wet vampire is one that is, like, stuck under the water, which means that he's just living forever.
No, he's a damp vampire, though, so he's escaped from the water.
So he's escaped from the water.
She's like, oh, you're kind of damp. You sure you want to do this? You want to, like, dry off first before you kill me? I don't know. But, like, hearing it again, I'm like, I gotta give it to her. Marketed really well to finally really take off in October, even though she just dropped the new single, so I don't know how, like, truthful that actually is. But I would be very surprised if people are not playing that song at their various Halloween gatherings this year.
Well, so this is good, because this kind of leads me into, like, my last song, and like, kind of the conversation I was having that I was talking about earlier, is like, what constitutes this. I started thinking of a lot of songs that I was just like, well, these are just, like, dumb and only fun to listen to at Halloween, right? And I was trying to figure out exactly, like, what it was about them. Like, for instance, I was looking at a bunch of, like, Brian David Gilbert the last couple of years has put out Halloween albums, like, where he did an entire album of, like, ABBA songs, but then, like, they were rewritten to be, like, scary Halloween ones and stuff like that. And he's done other projects similar to that. And that stuff is fun, but, like, I don't listen to that stuff other than at Halloween, like, because they're dumb and for Halloween, like, to the point where I can't even really listen to them a lot throughout October. I mean, literally, it needs to be like Halloween, or maybe All Hallows Eve. There needs to be I need to be extremely close to it for me to deal with that.
That's fair. All I can think of now, by the way, is Dracula singing Waterloo. Waterloo.
Well, give me a Man After Midnight. I believe is a is a Frankenstein one. I think.
That makes sense.
Dancing
Queen is the bride of Frankenstein. I can only assume I've never
is
heard
also
it.
really good.
Mummy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go listen.
It's a rap man's world.
But those are so what those are classified as, well, comedic songs are novelty songs, right? Like, yes. there's this idea to it. And novelty songs and gimmick songs are pretty much the same thing, but they're just a little different. And I think that's what you're talking about, is like there's like a gimmick to Vampire that, like, makes it very Halloween-y. And so it was very smart of her to release it 6 months ago, only for it to then get some really good legs by being listenable throughout the fall season, right?
Yeah.
Because it has a good gimmick to it, right? It's not necessarily a novelty song, though, because it is, like, a purposely produced to be a pop bop. Like, it's not just meant to be listened to on Halloween night, right?
Right.
So I think that's what makes it a gimmick song versus a novelty song. And that's kind of where I landed on my last one. What I chose for my last one is specifically the Sarah Jarosz version of Shankill Butchers, which is originally a Decemberist song. But I have a lot of history. Like, part of my love of the Sarah Jarosz version is definitely a nostalgia. when about 15 years ago, when I first got into like listening to podcasts and stuff. One of the first podcasts I ever listened to was this one by Brian Ibbett. Actually, funny enough, they're from the Frog Pants Network, which is based out here in Utah. I wasn't living in Utah at the time, but now I'm actually closer to them than I've ever been. He's a phenomenal musician, really funny guy, and he has a show that is still going to this day called Coverville, where he plays 3 or 4 covers of various songs in every episode as a theme. Sometimes it's a specific artist, but sometimes it's more heady than that. So he has really early on, he has a Halloween episode or a spooky songs episode, and he plays this version of Shankill Butchers because it's a cover of the original, and then he talks about both the original song and then where the cover comes from and why he likes the cover so much and all that. And I'm listening to this 15 years ago, and I liked the Decemberists. I still to this day I really like them, but at the time I was like aware of them. I had a lot of indie friends around me that were really into them and stuff like that, so I was like aware of them. This was kind of like the doorway into so many things. This was my doorway into the Decemberists. This was my doorway into Sarah Jarosz. I'm not.
You're saying it right the first way, Jarosz.
So it's Jarosz technically, but she has interviews from like 2014 where she's like, "It's Jarosz," and it's like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, then why is that Z there at the end, Sarah?
Yeah, people. I mean, names are weird. As somebody like I am not one to talk, but I'm not quite sure how to say it because everybody tells me to say it one way, but there seems to be direct evidence from her to say it another. So I just kind of mesh the two together. But so it's my introduction to her as well. It's my introduction, it's my introduction even kind of to this podcast because like I was listening to him because he's also a host on a different show that like I was like, oh, he has a different show. Let me listen to this. So like it just kind of became this like eye-opening moment for me at like 3 o'clock in the morning, like stocking shelves at CVS, listening to this song. And so for anybody that does not know the song, is a pretty creepy ballad, a little bit of a seafaring kind of lilt to it, which is pretty normal for the Decemberists, right? When Jarosz does it though, like she does all of her own, string work and everything on it. So like there's this phenomenal kind of like spooky, almost like story around a campfire element to it. And it is a song directly about a real group of people that were referred to as the Shankill Butchers. They were Northern Irish group that didn't take kindly to the British Catholics in the area, and they murdered a lot of them. They were infamous for supposedly breaking into people's houses in the middle of the night and like stealing like people out from the night and then like beating them and killing them in the streets. Like really like horrible, scary shit that was real. And the Decemberists are really weird in their topic and their subject matter, but also as far as doing like spooky, scary songs about, historic British and seafaring issues and things like that, like kind of all in their wheelhouse, right? Not weird that they choose it as like a topic. And then being the Decemberists, it's a really kind of big hit within their community, which then leads, I think, to other people covering it, which is what leads to her covering it. And it's like the levels of which there are so many people invested in this fucked up true story, and it leads to just this gorgeously haunting song that you hear. It was just kind of like I said, I'm also listening to this like working at a convenience store just off of the highway that's 24/7, and I'm the third shift and I'm the only guy out front. Like there was a lot of stuff about this song that really kind of spooked the shit out of me the first time I heard it.
I dig it. I dig it a lot. And I really like that it's a cover. I love the story. I love how much the tasks recently and like our very special episodes and time capsules have revealed why podcasting is something that you and I would go into. And like the podcast that shaped us. It's been really enjoyable. Yeah. So I thank that. And now I feel like an asshole because I too went for a gimmick or novelty type song at the end. Before I deliver it, I have to ask you a question. At any point in this assignment, did you consider the Monster Mash?
No, I pretty much immediately just kind of assumed that would be like I thought we wanted to find something more interesting than that.
Exactly.
It didn't even occur to me. But now that I think about it, the reason it didn't occur to me is because it's so too obvious, which feels like a really like snobby thing to say.
That's completely understandable.
Let me say this: if we were gonna do the Monster Mash, I would specifically do the Monster Mash that gets played every fucking year on Comedy Bang Bang. And anybody that listens to that show avidly knows exactly what I'm fucking talking about.
Right. The only reason I say it is because I tell my family what I'm doing and what our task is, and my father, without missing a beat from like me finishing it, goes, "Gotta be the Monster Mash, gotta be the Monster Mash," and I'm like,
Monster Mash.
I had forgotten that the Monster Mash was a song.
I have a Monster Mash record.
Of course,
I have an old 45 of the Monster Mash.
Yeah, it's one of those things never occurred to me at all, and it's just so funny to me because like we're talking about novelty songs. Boris Karloff and the Crypt Kickers doing Monster Mash is like, that's like the number one. But it never, I mean, it's not really spooky in any sort of way either. But I did want to at least address it and that. And then other songs I thought of that like aren't really spooky but did come to mind and are sort of like gimmicky is by Charlotte Diamond. She has a song called Looking for Dracula. And it's like a kid's song, but like, it weirdly has this representation of being an October thing. And then that was broken because my sister loved listening to like her tape when she was younger. So I would go looking for Dracula in like April. So like it kind of lost its thing. But what I landed on...
then there's Thriller with Vincent Price and stuff in it. But the thing about that is like you'd have to talk about the whole album. Like you can't just talk about that.
You can't just talk about that, and then it reaches into other parts, and it's like... But yeah, someone else was like, "Oh, you're gonna do Thriller, right?" And I'm like, "No, probably not." Thank you, though. I appreciate it. Just
like fucking love Thriller as like we should someday break down Thriller, but maybe at a time when we can actually convince people to go and not convince, but legitimately explain to people that they should see it. Like I don't know how we talk about Thriller right now.
Yeah,
because like, is it a music video? Is it a production?
Is
Would
it a
be
short
stunt work?
film?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's something. That's all I can confirm. But yeah, so those are things. Where I landed on, where I'm like, I need sort of a gimmicky novelty one is the last one. Hold on to your seats, folks, because Devon Decker chose Rock Lobster by the B-52s.
Okay, now wait a minute.
Now I'm ready.
Look, if we were putting together an album, if we were a band and we were like, oh, we want to do a Halloween album and here's 5 tracks, and then they came to us and they were like, you need 6. Which happens. This happens all the time to bands. They're like, nope, you're required to do 6 tracks.
We've talked about it.
Even though one of the ones we picked was Thriller and it's 30 minutes long, yes. Okay. Like you were contracted for 6 tracks. Rock Lobster, then and only then, I think, makes the cut.
And I get where you're coming from, but I like had put on my choices, right, and to go through them all and then whatever, just on Spotify as I was driving to Connecticut this morning, you know, like a fucking idiot, because now all it did was ruin my waiting for Wonder. Coming back to it, though, so I put all the choices that I was, I'm going to listen to them, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to, like, boil it down to what my 3 are. And when that whole playlist ended, the next song that played, like, inspired by the songs I just listened to, was Rock Lobster by the B-52s. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, fuck.
Okay, I'd always kind of gotten the impression that song is just about a lobster, but
it's
in
like
this
a
context
monster
of looking at it
lobster.
as a Halloween song, this idea that it is like this like 1950s like surfer movie, and it is like a Creature from the Black Lagoon style like guy in a suit as a giant lobster attacking everybody, but it ends in him like becoming part of the group and like getting to like surf with them and stuff. And then everybody's just like, "We love you, Rock Lobster."
Yeah, the song is written like a 1950s. Yeah, like I'm surprised it hasn't happened. But yeah, as it comes on, I'm like, why the fuck would they put on Rock Lobster? But then you listen to the down, 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 and I'm like, I mean, that's spooky fucking music. Like, it's dissonant, and like the tuning is all off on the guitar. The way that they like put that riff together.
Well, and you talk about dissonance, the chorus with the whales, right?
Yeah,
they're all dissonant whales in it. Yeah. No, look. Yeah, you have sold me on this concept. It helped largely in part by now this vision in my head of this movie that we have to make.
That's fine, right? We can write it now because the writing's no longer on strike, and then we try to sell it. But yeah, no, like, it is like, you know, his earlobe fell in the deep. Somebody reached in and grabbed it. It was a rock lobster. And it's a scary rock lobster. Ah! You know, Girls in
Yeah, no.
surfboards. It was this thing where I'm like, what a weird song to come on after all those spooky songs. And then as I'm listening, I'm like, this is kind of spooky too. I'm kind of freaked out by the rock lobster. I don't want him to get me. I hope he's friendly. And obviously, yeah, we make him the hero in the next one. He's like Godzilla, but a lobster made of rocks. Maybe.
Fantastic.
I don't know. But yeah, that's the one I ended on. So there you go. 3 spooky songs, 3 from Sejohn and me. And just as an added bonus, the playlist, when we do put it out there on Spotify, if you want to listen, is going to kick off with Spooky by the Atlanta Rhythm Section. Because, I mean, that's spooky. Love is kind of crazy with a spooky little girl like you.
Fantastic.
Excellent. All right, Siege, I believe the floor is yours. I'm going to leave you alone in the dark for a while.
I'm very excited to hear how you feel about your time with Alone in the Dark 4 or Alone in the Dark, the new dimension.
The new
What is
nightmare.
it?
The new nightmare.
The new nightmare. Thank you.
It's
I think. All right, so I'm trying to decide like how to best talk about this, and probably like a quick rundown of Alone in the Dark and kind of the franchise history is probably kind of needed here because I get the impression, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Dev, but I feel like Alone in the Dark is really kind of the forgotten older sibling in the horror franchise, like the one that like goes off to college in the first season and we don't really hear much from for the rest of the series type shit, right? Like
I almost jumped in with, "Oh, you mean like?" And then I'm like, "No, we
Yeah.
can't. That's Struck Work, you son of a bitch. We're not. Can we stop playing Struck Work Chicken with one another? It's clear what we're doing. This episode, paramount to any other episode that we've done of the Say Report, in this weird we can't talk about Struck Work in TV or movies,
I
has
wasn't
felt like
referencing a
Struck
particular
Chicken.
thing. I was referencing a common trope that is present in all things, including now video games. But like, there's
Struck Work Chicken is what we're playing, and we can't do that anymore. I love it though, brother. Continue. I'm sorry.
So Alone in the Dark, right? Alone in the Dark is a horror franchise. There's some survival elements, although a lot of them really do start to lean heavily into the action stuff. And we'll talk about
Just
what
like
that
every
means in the
other
grand
horror
scheme of things.
genre.
Well, and specifically before every other horror genre.
Yeah.
One of the big things to that I think a lot of people aren't aware of with this franchise, due to just the way that it has just not been well kept in the public mind. Like, so we have not been good stewards of Alone in the Dark, people, because it was the first. It was a PC game that came out in 1992, followed by one in 93 and then 95. And then New Nightmare comes along, I believe
2001.
2001, right?
Yes.
Because they have to wait like 7 years to really kind of get back on this horse. But anything that you think of that is specifically Resident Evil, Silent Hill also kind of borrows a lot of the stuff as well, and Silent Hill in and of itself feels like not only derivative of Alone in the Dark, but also derivative of Resident Evil, which it's like, so it's like two steps removed from it. But there's so much in Resident Evil that you think of as, man, that's so Resident Evil, that got its start in Alone in the Dark. Like, including things like the weird tank controls and camera angles. That is like the first Alone in the Dark game to a T, in a big spooky mansion that has a facility underneath in which you go through and figure out that there's more than just spooky shit going on. Like, Alone in the Dark 3 is all about our loving hero that is in all of these, the not Leon Kennedy archetype that we have. Right, and what he has to do in Alone in the Dark 3? Well, a young woman has been kidnapped out in an abandoned village out in the middle of the desert, and so he has to go there and fight off all of the crazed prospectors and villagers and everything. Oh, and lo and behold, there's a bunch of nuclear waste under the town that's creating monsters as well, and it's all being covered up by this government-style entity that he needs that you end up fighting in the end. And so, like, all of this weird shit that you find its way into Resident Evil is like, it started in Alone in the Dark. And so it's hard to look at Alone in the Dark, the New Nightmare, and really kind of understand that. And it's really hard to look at Alone in the Dark now in 2023 and truly understand that. But if you look back at these like adventure style PC games of 1, 2, and 3, you get these really weird elements that you're like, wait a minute, like, I didn't realize they were doing this 5 years before Resident Evil was, 6, 7 years before Silent Hill was, right? Like you didn't realize that this had all kind of been done before, to the point where Capcom even had their hands on Alone in the Dark at one point, and they chose to kind of not feed that beast so that they could just kind of push more Resident Evil stuff. So like, if not for Capcom kind of stepping in, we might have a better perception of what Alone in the Dark was, right? But yeah, like all of the, you mentioned even that all horror franchises eventually kind of find themselves in that weird position of being too video gamey and actiony for their own good. Like, and yep, guess what? That exact same complaint gets kind of levied against Alone in the Dark, because the first one is this wonderful like puzzle experience where you can choose between the male or female protagonist, and depending on which one you choose, certain things are going to be different. Certain puzzles will have different solutions and things like that. Also, the male one is going to be a little bit tougher because it's going to have just a little bit more action and a little less puzzling, but the female one is going to have a little bit more puzzling, and you're going to get certain boons because this house used to belong to your grandfather or some bullshit. Like, all of the same shit that comes up in Resident Evil. And then Resident Evil 2 starts to lean a little bit too much in the action, and one of the big complaints levied against Alone in the Dark 2 is, yeah, it's so much more action oriented. It's really lost a lot of the horror elements that were there. Like, it's fucking buck wild to look back at the history of Alone in the Dark and realize that it was doing all of this shit a whole decade almost before some of these other franchises, and now we don't really talk about Alone in the Dark much anymore. And that is because I think a lot of these franchises were learning from Alone in the Dark's sins. One of those biggest sins being the new Nightmare, the game that Devon spent a lot of time playing this week, and I jumped back into, but I have not been able to finish this game, this version of this game. I have played this game. I played it though when it was on, I think I played the Dreamcast version. Like, it's one of the very first big scary games I ever really played way back in the day, and I played a very different game than the than the GameCube, or the Game Boy one that's available on the Switch right now. So when I played it a couple of weeks ago or months ago when it came out, I was like, oh no, what have they done? what have you done to my boy? Like, I was like, this is wildly
massacred my boy.
And then and so then I was like, Devon, you have to play this. And that was what led to this being the big task for this week, is I was like, you need to play this game, because I want to talk about Alone in the Dark, and then we need to talk about how this is such a shit version of Alone in the Dark. First of all, Alone in the Dark 4. We've gotten to this point now, right? I talked about how the first one is about a big mansion. There's a lot of puzzles. The second one, same character that you're following, Edward
Carnby.
How do you...
Carnby. Carnby.
Yeah, I've never said it out loud. I just realized. I've always thought it. This is because nobody ever wants to talk about Alone in the Dark with me. But yeah, so you're still following Edward from all of the games. He's got this history now behind him of being this paranormal investigator. And in the original version of this game, first of all, there's a whole bunch of FMV. Fucking love it. There's so many good like videos, and there's so much good like terrible acting in it and stuff like that. I love it. But the opening of this game is your friend has been killed, so you're going to the mansion where he was killed to figure out what happened. You end up on a plane with a young woman, a university professor, who's going to help you with some investigation stuff there, but she also has other reasons for being there. There's a lot of stuff about whether or not she's connected to the mansion or whatever, blah, blah, blah. These are mysteries for later, right? And then, in the original version of this game, the plane fucking crashes. You survive a plane crash. And depending on, you can play as either the man or the woman. You're given the choice between male or female protagonist. And if you play as the guy, Edward, you wake up like at the foot of the island, like right in front of the mansion, and then you're kind of working your way up to the top. But what's awesome is that if you choose the female protagonist, she lands on the roof. So you're actually starting the game from the whole other fucking side of the thing and working your way back down through the mansion to find your way out. Right? And it's like, it's a really cool like narrative concept, right? Devon, how'd you feel about the opening of the Game Boy game?
It's long. That's what I would be super mad if I were playing it on a Game Boy or not in my docked Switch, because battery is at a premium. I do not need this much to tell me what the game is going to be. And let me tell you the worst part about it. The worst part about it is A advances, but B backs up. So I'm just mashing to try to get through. Lo and behold, I'm moving forward, going back at the same time every time I mash. So that was like the first thing, was just like, there should be a way to skip all of this. But
And
the
then
story
what about
of itself,
when you get to the narrative stuff that I talked about?
When you get to the narrative, and they're like, oh, we got to go to this island, Shadow Island. And, we've just landed our plane. Good luck out there. Oh, by the way, I snuck a walkie-talkie in your pocket. It's going to blink if I need to talk at you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So
completely eliminates the entire like crux of the mystery of like, oh, we're stranded on this island. Like, there is a plane waiting for them at any moment. They've both landed safely and they are both together. There is none of this element of discovery or mystery.
Nothing is keeping them there. Nothing is keeping them there. Other than the fact, then, he wants to solve the death of his friend Fisk. Like, he wants to solve Fisk's murder. So, I mean, Carnby has a reason to be there. And Aline, she wants to get back the statue, the mysterious statue that, like, seems to be the reason why Fisk was killed. But, like, okay, but we could just go. We could come back at, like, a better time. Like, we don't... But, all right.
We could come back with more people, maybe.
Right, right?
If you really want to look for this.
So many great... But, all right, so let me tell you about my first playthrough of Alone in the Dark.
There's other elements that kind of get switched up a little bit for the Game Boy version, right? Like, so the game becomes actually weirdly more action oriented on the Game Boy because they remove all of the video stuff. They're not going to have it. They remove all of the voice acting. That's just not going to happen on the Game Boy Color. So with that, in order to like it feels like to me, in order to beef the game up, they then added to the Game Boy version this weird element of a shooting, like of an isometric shooting gallery that I would say comes from nowhere, except there's one place in particular that it really feels like it comes from. Resident Evil Gaiden.
Yeah.
Resident Evil Gaiden doesn't necessarily go into the isometric perspective, but the ways in which Resident Evil Gaiden handles, like, oh, we need to put more combat into this game because we can't have all these other elements, and we're going to add that combat by adding the shooting gallery style moment. Like, basically is like, years later, then Alone in the Dark is like, well, they stole from us, so let's start stealing from them, I guess. And they start taking all this shit from Resident Evil, but the Resident Evil that they choose to ape is Resident Evil Gaiden. So mixed with the fact that the story on the Game Boy is just like completely cut off at the knees, there's so much tension taken out of it, and then you run into the game and you end up in these weird moments where you have these like almost puzzle style elements of like crowd control, like horde mode, cutscenes of you trying to like shoot at like creatures and stuff. And it's just like, it's so wild. It is so crazy. And what's even crazier is I'm talking about all of this, and this particular game ends up actually doing really well for Nintendo in terms of criticism. Like, not knocking it out of the park, but in terms of where Alone in the Dark was, and the fact that it disappeared for 7 years, because of all sorts of stuff, creative stuff, Capcom coming in and being like, well, we're not gonna let this see the light of day for a while. We're gonna leave it alone in the dark, as it were, right? Like, there's all of this stuff happening to it that when it comes back and it gets this weird Game Boy version, like, a lot of people are like, this is not the worst it could be. Like, it's one of those things where it feels like it's like we kind of expected this to just kind of be utter trash, and it's not that. So that's pretty cool, right? And so it gets this bump, and I think that might be the only fucking reason why when Nintendo's like, we're gonna emulate the Game Boy Color on the Switch, and one of the first games we're gonna put up is Alone in the Dark, the new Nightmare. It can only be because it's not a good game, and I can't really find anybody out there that
it's a great game. I fucking love this game. I'm interjecting to tell you, I fucking love this game.
It's a weird fucking game.
It's so good,
just, like,
though.
Really weird.
It's so good. I absolutely loved this game. I've beaten it twice.
Now let's talk about Devon's experience with it.
Right.
Here we go.
So here it is. So I start playing the game, and I'm like, oh, okay. So there's like basic adventure game premise, right? We're on this island. I'm gonna go look for it. You're at my escape route. We'll go from there. I'm playing, and then I get to the first isometric section where I have to fight spiders with my revolver, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like it's like it feels like Resident Evil kind of. Like I'm not like crazy fast. I feel like the gun has like power behind it. I cannot believe that this is a Game Boy Color game. That's where my mind is at. My mind is, I can't believe this was a Game Boy Color game. How in-depth this section is. My secondary thought was, with the release of Resident Evil 4 Remake this year, there was all this talk on the social medias about the guy who was making a Resident Evil 4 Game Boy Color version, and I'm like, friend, that already exists. Is Alone in the Dark the new normal? Oh, the new nightmare, not the new normal.
The new normal. I love it. Yeah,
Ellen Barkin.
I mean, and
Morton.
and Alone in the Dark. It's not like it's completely forgotten. We're on the cusp of Alone in the Dark, the remake of the original game coming out.
Yeah,
with David Harbour, like playing this character that, if that game does well, I mean, we're looking at a possible like franchise rebirth of this. Like, if that game does well, like I'm super excited because I love Alone in the Dark, and the original one, like you said, adventure game, like startup and all that, like to a fucking T. Like, give me like a really crazy, like Resident Evil, but with like 25% of the amount of combat that a Resident Evil game usually demands out of you nowadays. I don't need that much combat for it to be a spooky, fun game, right? And like, give me the weird puzzles, give me the gory like details in the backgrounds and shit like that. Give me all that stuff, but like, let me like explore it. And one of the coolest things about the original Alone in the Dark that really gets lost in the sequels, and part of the reason why people get so weird about it, about the sequels not living up to the original, is like, it's a non-linear map, which just means that like, if you want to, you can go backwards and forwards, right? You can go in and out of rooms all you want. Later games, it's all linear, it's all on rails, it's all go forward and all that, blah 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 blah. But one of the coolest things about the original one is, once you kind of figured out the mystery, the last thing is to leave, to escape, to leave the mansion. But by that point, you've defeated the evil. The mansion is now pretty much free range. You can just walk around. So if there's any puzzles you didn't finish, if there's any story stuff you want to go pick up, like, you can walk around and just take in the atmosphere for the rest of that game. And then it only ends once you exit the mansion. So as long as you never exit the front door, you can just walk around. And that's fucking awesome, especially after you spend 16 hours with that game and get to the end of it and you're just like, man, this is fucking wild. I wanted to find out exactly what was going on, and you can. And like, if they can recreate that in the new one, that'd be awesome. And that's exactly the kind of thing that is totally missing from this type of version of this game. That is just like, why
it's missing for you. It was there for me in this game. So that first playthrough, it's Sunday night, so it's a week ago from when I'm given the task. I'm playing through. I'm starting to get a feel for the island. I'm starting to understand the mansion. I'm making legitimate progress, and then I get to the library. Now, here's a brief overview of the library in Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. You can walk around the library in the stacks. You can do a full circle. Or you can cut through the center of the library. Don't fucking cut through the center of the library. That's what you need to know. Because every time you walk into the center of the library, you have to do an isometric battle. And the reason why I, who had like made serious progress in the game, what felt like serious progress in the game, come to find out that's not necessarily the case, that there's a lot more game. But I felt like the mansion portion, I'm like, I feel like I'm doing pretty well here. I died, and not because I ran out of health, but because I ran out of bullets. Because that isometric section in the center of the library, all of the isometric sections, and it actually becomes a thing much later in the game, are populated with ammo. So in addition to like killing whatever the threat is so that you can progress past this scene, you have to be smart enough to refill your ammo. Because ammo is like a secret life bar. Because it's not like, oh, you ran out of bullets, so you ran away. You get a game over screen if you run out of bullets in any of these sections. And I was frustrated the first time that happened. And I'm like, well, I'm taking a break. I'm taking a break from the game. And I took a break from the game a full day. I did not play it at all on Monday, even though I had to try to stay awake late because I wanted to watch a show before my parents went away on the vacation this past week. So I'm like, I wanted to watch it with them. So I'm like, all right, I'm taking Monday off. Tuesday, I'm like, here's the deal. I am committing to 2 tries of Alone in the Dark tonight. Alone in the Dark New Nightmare is getting 2 fresh save file starts from Devon Decker. And I start playing, and I'm deep. I figure out the secret of the library, which is don't freaking walk into, like, only stay in the stacks. No reason to go through the center of it. And I'm making progress. And then progress has stopped. And I'm like, I've been everywhere that I can go. And I'm pretty sure I need something off of this bookshelf. But the way that Carnby describes it is, there are a lot of interesting things here, but I wouldn't know which of them is actually worth taking. So I'm getting frustrated, and I'm like, all right, I don't want to look up a walkthrough of the game. I don't want to have this game solved for me. I want to solve it on my own. But let me do what?
Never mind. I go ahead. I don't want to rag on you yet. I want to see how you figure it out.
Okay. So I'm like, but let me look into the game. Let me see if I can get some information about the game. So I find out that it had the 92 version, that it was the inspiration for Resident Evil, and I go, oh, you know what I haven't done in this second playthrough of the game? I never talked to the magic mirror. And I bet, because this is how fucking games worked when I was young in the 90s, once I talk to the mirror, the item that the mirror needs will populate somewhere in the game. It's not always there for me to grab. I need to specifically be told I need to find the amulet in order for the amulet to actually show up somewhere.
Right.
So I go talk to the mirror, and then I go back and I'm exploring again, and lo and behold, in like the big shelving unit that I kept trying to explore, but it would always just advance me to the rooms to the sides of it. There's the amulet. So I grab the amulet, talk to him, go back to that shelf where they're like, there's interesting things here, but I wouldn't know what to grab. I can suddenly grab what I need to grab, and progress resumes. And I'm feeling pretty freaking good about myself, solving all the puzzles, haven't looked at a walkthrough. And then I get to the basement, and I'm walking through sewage, and literally the thought that jumps through my head is, this feels like Separate Ways. This feels like the Separate Ways DLC I just played for Resident Evil 4 Remake. I'm in love with this game and everything that it stands for. I avoid these 2 spikes that are in the sewage I'm wading through. I get to the next level, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to go anywhere near like that gray tubing. That'll probably kill me. Lo and behold, spoilers for Alone in the Dark, the New Nightmare, you touch that gray tubing, it freaking kills you.
Yeah, like more than so. The thing that Alone in the Dark really has that I think that is its hook, that is its charm, is it is so much more adventure gamey than Resident Evil has ever dared to be, than Silent Hill has ever dared to be. Right? Like it feels almost like there are moments where when you're playing Alone in the Dark where you feel like you're almost playing like a LucasArts game.
Yep.
I mean, this is super true in the original ones. Fucking Alone in the Dark, the big bad of the original game, like not like, and this is in the narrative. This isn't like a spoiler. Is a ghost pirate. Like
that checks out on every level. That makes perfect sense.
Right. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. And then like, oh, man, it gets so fucking crazy. Alone in the Dark 2 has a character in it, Grace, as a little kid that, guess what you get to do as a little kid in that game? You get to do a stealth mission because you can't fight the big bads, so you have to hide and get through maze-like things where you stealth around as a child around the big bads. Sound familiar? But she becomes such a popular character. I'm trying to remember if it's because she's popular in the game or if she becomes popular because they give her like a little spin-off game. Now, you kids might not know this, but back in the day, video games all came on floppy disks, right? And so to promote Alone in the Dark 2, and again, I don't remember if it was a before or after the case thing, they create a spin-off game that is a Santa-based scary game like Jack in the... what is it? Is it Jack in the Dark?
Jack in the Dark, yeah. Small game made during the second game's production, Jack in the Dark was used as a promotional game distributed during Christmas of '93 before the second installment's release.
Okay, so before. So this comes out before, where you play as Grace and you're doing all of the stealth stuff, but what you're trying to do is save Santa from like evil toys.
Yeah, she gets locked in a toy store where the toys are alive, and Grace must save Santa from an evil Jack-in-the-Box.
Yeah, it's fucking like this series was so willing to get just fucking wild and weird. And so things like adventure game style deaths where like, yeah, you just touch a pole and that zaps you and you're dead. With like, okay, restart from the last checkpoint, I guess.
Hopefully you saved your game, and hopefully you didn't
yeah.
save your game at a point where like now you're fucked. You're too far down. So I had saved my game once I got into the sewer area. I had saved my game. So I sent Sejohn the game over screen when you touched a gray tube, and I'm like, I'm so mad at you. But I reloaded, and I'm like, I'm still going to try from this reloaded save point. Let's keep going. And I keep going, and I keep going, and I face the big bad of the game on the Game Boy Color version, which is a guy named Morton, who like used the statue in order to open the underworld for unlimited power. And I beat him in a fight, and I'm like, oh, it feels good. But the Carmby's like, I don't know if he's dead or not. So you just got to keep going through the game. And I keep going, keep exploring. And I'm like, down to, I get killed in a fight with spiders. I got overwhelmed by spiders in a fight. At like what feels like the end of it. I found the statue. I've seen the statue, but it has a force field. So I'm exploring around trying to find a way to break the force field. And I get overwhelmed by spiders. And then I'm like, I'm what the fuck? But luckily I had saved and I did it. But again, I say like in an adventure game like that, you need to make sure that that save is not like you have no resources or like you only have 5
or the
health.
inevitable oh yeah, you fed that fish to the seal and now you don't have it in order to feed to the dog, so you just can't win this game.
Right,
you've completely fucked yourself. What?
So I had saved the game once I got down to that lower area, and I'm like, I'm just gonna, instead of exploring around, I now know that big spider room is coming. With the fullest health I have, I'm gonna head to the big spider room. I beat the big spider room and I'm feeling really good. Find its force field. But because I died and knowing that my health is really low, suddenly the survival part of survival horror has taken on a new meaning. Because I'm like, I don't want to die again. I feel like I'm close to the end of this game. I've been playing for like a couple of hours at this point. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. But it's like that feeling of like, oh my God, am I able to do this? I swear to God, if I die or anything like that. But I found health potions and I go through and then I'm suddenly back in the mansion and I'm like, oh, okay, this is it. Like, it's time to go. I have the statue. The guy's probably dead. Let's just head back to the airplane. And then he shows up again and he was decimated because halfway through the game, and this is not really a spoiler, but semi-spoilers, but every time you go into the isometric view, it shows you all the weapons you're going to eventually get to use. You only have a revolver in the beginning, but it shows a shotgun and a crossbow, which is, again, leading to the whole Ada Wong thought of it, right? Because she's always like, I have this crazy crossbow. I'm Ada Wong. So I keep going, and then I find him, and I'm like, I gotta fight him again, and I'm like real low health, but I switch over to the crossbow because I haven't used it. It destroyed him. The crossbow shoots super fast, and it does like triple damage to him compared to the other stuff. He's dead, and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to head towards the plane. But then you get a call, and there's a whole mechanic where like, you have your walkie-talkie, and if it's flashing, just hit the A button, and we can talk. And I got to the point where I'm like, I have no desire to talk to you. The shit you say is just not helpful. It's just supposed to make me feel more immersed in the game. But really what it feels like is a distraction from how deeply immersed in the game I am. To be like, remember, doors can be opened with some things other than knobs. And it's like, yeah, I already opened the door with the freaking crowbar. Shut up. What are you doing? So then I get back to the plane and I've won the game. And I'm like, oh my God, I did it. I didn't have to use a walkthrough. I just felt really good about it. And I loved this game. My experience with it I feel as invigorated and as alive as I did the first time I beat Resident Evil 2 Remake back in 2019, February of 2019. I loved it. And then I'm like, I want to look into this and do it. But then I got distracted throughout the week doing other things. Started watching a show on one of the streaming networks, and that hooked me. I can't wait till I can talk about that show, because this is the first like bit of television in 2023 that grabbed me from the beginning and didn't let go till the end. and I'm excited to share it with everybody. So we'll get there. I promise we'll get there. But I beat the game, and I felt really good about it. And then today, the other reason why Devon was a bit of a fucking idiot is I'm like, I want to see if I can get through the game in less than an hour, now that I know everything. So Sejohn will attest to this at 10:15, because that's when I was back and cleaned up for my Target excursion this morning. I said, I'm not going to be ready to go recording till 11:15, which is 15 minutes after we usually start, behind the curtain. And I sat down to finish the game, and I set myself a 55-minute timer, because I didn't want to be rude to Sejohn. 55:48 was on the timer when I started the game. When I finished the game, 20 minutes and 28 seconds were left on that timer. So I got through it in 35 minutes and 20 seconds. And
yeah, it's definitely a game you could do that with, right?
Yeah.
Like it is definitely. I mean, but that like I adore that you fell in love with this game. Like
I love
this is best case scenario is that you played this game and had this feeling, because I also have a soft spot for this game. I also just don't like it. But that but the fact that you do, like, this is great. These are all the reasons why I just don't like this game. Like that, the fact that like it's that style of game, it is so just not. It's just so not Alone in the dark, right? Like the fact that it doesn't take you hours of exploring silly mystery shit, and then there's these moments where it has those Alone in the Dark moments where you do touch the metal pipe and die, like, and shit like that. Like learning how to get through the puzzles of the fights, like, is an interesting way of looking at them, I guess. Like, but it just, I as somebody that only ever really truly played the first one and then got to hang out with my friends while we tried like 2 and 3 and stuff like that, I was not allowed to play the evil cowboy one because that was too scary. By that point, my parents were paying more attention to what I was doing, I guess. Like early on, they seemed to not realize what I was getting up to, I think. But there's all these elements of like the walking around, the map and exploring and doing puzzles and going back and getting information and all that like is just not in this version of this game. And I would say is not really present in the larger versions of these games on like the PlayStation 2 or the Dreamcast either, which is part of the reason why I think Alone in the Dark, like, it does all right. Like, I think it lands in like the 60-70% range on Metacritic and stuff like that. Alone in the Dark 4, sorry.
Yep.
Specifically the New Nightmare. Like, it kind of, it just, what happens to it is it's coming out in the middle of the glut of all these other horror franchises. And can't quite get a handle on being like too unique, which sucks because earlier versions of the game or earlier iterations in the franchise were so unique because of how silly they were. And the fact that this one just doesn't want to go there is just like so sad to me.
So straightforward.
The franchise.
Like the craziest thing in the game, and I mean you fight Morton, who's like a one-eyed crazy man who's trying to rip your skin off. But like the craziest part in the game up to that point was you talk to the mirror and the spirit of your dead friend has been trapped in the mirror. And I'm like, oh, okay. But other than that, it just felt like basic mystery stuff. And I really loved it. But here's what I will say, and I'm sorry, Siege, for this. I went out and I found a copy of the first one, knowing that this was the fourth in the series, and absolutely loving this game. Like, seriously, you're out there in the world, send an email to the Say Reporter, get in touch with me the way that you all do. If you want me to try to like stream a speedrun of this game, I am willing to cobble together the equipment to do it. All my equipment is around, but like this game, I want to play it again, and it's October, and I can imagine I'm only going to get better each time through. One death was how many I had this time through, and that felt pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
I would like to watch you play this game through. Yeah. I think I would definitely watch that.
Yeah. So I mean, so if you also want to hear it, not just Sejohn, I might just do it for Sejohn, but if everybody wants to do it, we'll let you know when you can do it and figure that whole out. Love this game. Absolutely love this game. But it made me want to go out and play the first one, and I loaded up the first one. I took one step as the character and said, nope. Alt F4, deleted forever.
Yeah, what's the matter? The camera angles and all that shit gets you?
The camera angles, the tank controls, everything Devon Decker hates in a game right there in front of him. And I'm like, and we're done. Thank you for playing. Bye-bye. Excited for the remake that is supposed to be coming out in January of 2024. Like really excited, like legitimately excited. Though now I guess I'll approach it a little bit differently, knowing how unique this game is. But the way that he moves, the way that Carnby moves, the control you have over him, the way that it switches from exploration to action scene, it really like invigorated me and made me excited for it. And honestly, my read on playing the game on the Switch was one of the reasons why you put this game on the Nintendo Switch Online is because it's a secret fucking gem that like what kept it from being as well regarded as it could have been is the fact that you played it on a small system, small screen, non-backlit. Like, this game is
especially
beautiful.
Because this one, right, and this one more than any of the other ones, this one revolves so much around light. Like, they take the Alone in the Dark like title and make it so like important to the actual concepts of the story more than it's ever been before. Like the way that light plays into all of the puzzles and shit in this game and certain monsters and things like that. Like light is so important, and to have it on a system that notoriously had lighting issues is wild.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, like both of the people who wrote walkthroughs for this game, after I finished the game, I looked at the walkthroughs because I was curious. I was just curious how they were written. None of them are recent, right? If I were really serious about it, I'd probably write a full in-depth walkthrough on how to beat this game. And one of the main reasons why is the higher rated of the two walkthroughs. How far have you gotten in the game? I don't like. Are you ever gonna play through to the end? Do you think? Or...
I know. No, I know how this game. Like I know the ending of this game. I have been aware of this game forever. I am aware of this game. Gotcha. I am never going to get to the end of it.
Understood.
Probably, because I just don't have the drive.
So you get to a section of the game. You pick up some dynamite, and then Carnby interjects to speak to, I guess, himself about the fact that all of the tunnels we're walking through appear the same. It could be easy to get lost. So the guy in the higher rated of the two walkthroughs talks about is now trial and error, good luck. Once you get to this screen, we can continue. But like, there's a clear path that you're supposed to go through, and there's ways to find it. And at the end of that path, you find this huge friggin' jewel. Right. And then if you use that jewel, and it's sort of in the flavor text of the jewel, it illuminates the path forward. And that is the coolest thing in the game. Because like on the screen and in the like FMV video that sort of survives, it appears to be like a bright cyan blue colored gem. Right. That is glowing. But in your inventory, it's like a nice amber. And when you activate it, right, you make it your active item in your inventory, an amber path arrives to show you which way to go. And it's right there. But he's like, all right, now that you've got the crystal, because you need that to like beat the game, like it's time to trial and error again. Like he didn't even realize that using that item is why you find that item. That like it's your wayfinder to get through.
I mean, it's awesome that you figured that out because like, fuck me.
Because like the guy doesn't talk about that in the walkthrough, and then I read the other walkthrough, and he's like, you want to like head left whenever you can, and then eventually you'll come upon the gem, and that's sort of right. You go left, and then you have to walk towards the screen, and then you'll find the crystal, and it's like, and then equip the crystal and follow the yellow brick road. Is what is written exactly in the thing, because it looks like it's like a bright yellow thing. And you talk about how important light is, like holding that crystal illuminates the proper path. And it's super cool the way that works. And I'm like, I don't know if this first guy was playing on it so he couldn't tell that differentiation. Like it is, you know how everybody complains about like yellow as the indicator for like a ladder you can interact with or a box that you can break. It feels like it might be the first instance of like disparate bright color to indicate this is your path to follow. Yeah. And it was like really cool. And I'm like, I can't believe this guy, and everything else in this walkthrough is really, really good. So like good for him. But like even he, who if you were writing a walkthrough for like game FAQs or game facts, I've always been a game FAQs guy. Back in the day, like you studied the game. You wanted to make sure that there weren't any questions that could be asked afterwards. And at the end, you'd be like, if I miss something in all I've done, please let me know. So, like, the fact that this game for so long just went like, oh, I guess you just gotta guess to get to the end of the fucking game.
It shows you how many people are actually trying to get to the end of it anyway.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't think that... I mean, the crossbow looks like just another thing on the ground. If I hadn't seen what it looked like in the isometric sections, I wouldn't have tried to pick it up. Yeah. But it is like, you get gardening gloves hyper early in the game, and you don't need them until like the third and fourth to last puzzles in the game. It's just a blast. I loved it. I absolutely loved this game. And it reminded me of what was so special when the Game Boy Color came around, which maybe this is not the perfect time to say it, but I'm gonna address it. Game Boy Color, in the way that Game Boy Advance became sort of a Super Nintendo like re-release platform, Game Boy Color became a regular Nintendo Entertainment System re-release platform. We got like the Crystallis re-release. R-Type got a re-release. Blaster Master got a re-release.
Well, I mean, and this just speaks to his thing that we've said 1,000 times on this show, but like people want to get all up their ass about like about how Nintendo seems to just be leaning on these re-releases nowadays, and it's like, no, this has always been part of their marketing. This has always been part of their whole concept, is whatever the new console is, handheld or not, like, let's see what we can do to get some of the old stuff out there to get people buying it, with the hopes that people are not going to be trading them around or buying, you know, illegal versions and things like that. Nintendo has always used this tactic in order to get people playing their old shit again.
Yeah. And it's also a really good indicator, because I remember reading in Nintendo Power that, like, you're going to see a lot of remakes of games from the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the reason behind that is Nintendo wants you to know that what you're holding in your hand is as powerful as what they released as a home console 15 years ago.
Right.
It's 1999, and you're not buying a Game Boy Color just because now it's in color. You're buying a Game Boy Color because it can play Deja Vu, which Deja Vu is another like adventure game. And Deja Vu did so well in its re-release that they released a sequel to Deja Vu 2. And it's not surprising that all these old adventure game companies see what happens with Deja Vu. What?
Deja Vu?
Deja Vu. And decide, I'm going to release my adventure games there. Because apparently this is the platform to play them on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do. I love it. I'm trying to cobble together a way to stream it, because I do want to go through again. I looked at speedrun.com, and the any percent run on Game Boy Color, the number one spot belonging to Romulator, is 17 minutes and 44 seconds. Number two, and there's only two people on there, is 20 minutes flat. And that's for any percent. So I imagine that possibly some things are skipped that I think right now are necessary. So, but I will tell you, talking to frickin' Fisk is the only way to make the amulet show up. And you find a piece of the diary where Morton talks about, I'll have to put a hidden button in a library book in order to keep my laboratory safe, my storeroom safe. I was standing where that button was, and it was not there. I could not interact with it. I had to read the page of his diary, and then lo and behold, then the button showed up. Which, like, if I had one complaint...
But I imagine it's a lot like... I've been replaying the Sam & Max games lately recently. Yep. I'm on Sam & Max Save the World right now. And it's all about order of operations with those games, right? Like you're saying, you need to talk to the right person so that this item becomes available, so that you know what to do with it, so that you can... And if you can get that order of operations down and figure out, like you said, maybe there's a couple of steps in that operation you actually don't even need to complete. But if you can get that sorted, I bet you can easily knock 15 minutes off of your run.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all. And again, I was like nervous that I wasn't going to be done in time to record. I was talking to people. I was not focused on trying to beat the game as fast as possible. I just wanted to see if I could complete it in under an hour. And I did that. So I feel like now if I actually want to try to get a record in this, I could do it. I mean, technically, the run I did earlier is the third place run. I'm sure other people have done it, but, you know, based on the timing, I'm the third fastest runner of Alone in the Dark Game Boy Color. And that feels pretty cool. Right?
Awesome.
I don't know. But yeah, I really like it. And if you have Nintendo Switch Online, you're looking for like a tight little game that to play for the October, like spooky season, there's my recommendation right there. Thank you, Sejohn, for alerting me to the Alone in the Dark series. I really am thankful to you for that.
No worries, man.
All right, it's task time, Sejohn. What you got for me this week, buddy?
I got a weird one, bud.
Oh,
it's the Halloween season, so we're gonna get fucking weird. I need you to tell me. You're gonna teach me about a thing, Dev. I want you to do a little bit of research on the internet, wherever you may find it, about Mystery Flesh Pit National Park.
Oh, great.
And the two things that I want you to be able to tell me next time is what is it, and why should I care about it? And it's a thing. I know a lot about it, but I'm excited to hear you try and explain to me what it is.
I felt bad. I felt bad about my task for this week. I don't feel bad anymore. And I like that this is what happens all the frickin' time. Sejohn, I sent you a photo that I spoiled.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
I'd like you to be there. I'd like you to click that spoiler open in 3, 2, 1. You open it, Sejohn. Do you see what I see?
What? I was going to talk to you about... I was like, okay, all right. I had some other thoughts about what tasks could be, and I dialed it back because I was like, well, this would be a weird one to give, right? There's never anything weirder.
Never a weird task, right? Just like you out there listening can go out and learn all you can about National Flesh Pit, Mystery Flesh Pit National Park.
This is a joke, right? Like, this has to be a joke.
Oh my God, what it is. So my task, the internet was consumed last Saturday when a player on the Buffalo Bills was caught at a bar pouring buffalo sauce into his Pepsi. Everybody was like, oh my God. And then there was a bunch of concern, like, please, we need you ready to play tomorrow. And he's like, I've been pouring buffalo sauce into my Pepsi forever. It makes it spicy. It pairs very nicely with the flavor and the sweetness of the Pepsi.
I love this idea, though, of a fan seeing this and being like, oh no, this is going to take him out of the game tomorrow.
Right? Like, it was on social media. And of course, the Buffalo Bills and Pepsi leaned into it and released what Sejohn just opened, which is how to make Buffalo Pepsi. So you pour a 12-ounce Pepsi or Pepsi Zero Sugar into a glass with ice. I guess the ice is important. And then gently add 1 tablespoon of buffalo sauce. Garnish and stir with a stick of celery. And you can optionally add a blue cheese rim to the glass, which is really crazy because it seems like they're behind the times that Buffalo, New York has officially made ranch the side dish of buffalo wings. That happened this year. It might have happened a couple of years ago, but it has been officially announced that rather than blue cheese, as it has been since the beginning, Buffalo, New York has said, no, ranch is fine. And in fact, we kind of prefer ranch.
I've got some initial thoughts and stuff on it. I am saving this all for next week because this has already got my brain going.
So what Sejohn has to do, and what I will do too, and what you can do at home, not only make yourself a Buffalo Pepsi, Sejohn, but in this world, in this country, in these great United States of America, if you go into a restaurant and you order a Coke and they don't have Coke, they sheepishly ask you, is Pepsi okay? Because everybody knows that Pepsi is the inferior of the two beverages. The Coca-Cola, the Rock and Roller Cola Wars, we know who the winner was. It was Coca-Cola.
Are you going to ask me to Pepsi challenge this?
No. That'd be insane. If we were together, you'd be sitting in a blindfold right now. Well, next time that we're recording. But I am asking you to make and enjoy 1 Buffalo Pepsi, and plot twist, he was dead all along. Make yourself a Buffalo Coke. And we're also going to judge which is the superior beverage. So to make the Buffalo Coke, same basic thing, is going to be a 12-ounce Coke or Coke Zero sugar into a glass with ice. All the other ingredients are the same. So just swap out Coke for Pepsi, have a Buffalo Pepsi, have a Buffalo Coke. I mean, question your choices. Because
check your health insurance, make sure it will cover this.
Yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to financially recover. No, but honestly, it's one of those things. I saw this and I was like immediately, oh, we have to do this. And then I'm like, no, Devon. We need to wait until Sunday and it becomes next week's task. I don't know, like, do we want to find like a specific buffalo sauce that we recommend? Because buffalo sauce is basically like hot sauce and butter, right?
I think that'll be something we can talk about.
Okay, cool. Because I'm thinking, like, should I go out and get, like, McDonald's or KFC's buffalo sauce? Or should I just mix up my own like I would generally do in this situation?
I know. I think that'll add to the conversation next week. I'm not sure what I will do just yet. As I have just seen this.
Goodness gracious. All right. So that's it. Everybody out there in Say Report land, try yourself a Buffalo Pepsi and a Buffalo Coke. Maybe it'll pair nicely with learning about Mystery Flesh Pit National Park. Either way, these are the tasks from this week. Sejohn, do you have anything else to add before we send them home and on their way?
I'm excited for next week's episode, he said begrudgingly.
Begrudgingly. All right. Well, we are working on the Discord server. We'll have more information with that once we get it all settled. Until then, we're still accepting your emails. You can send them to thesayreport@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you're trying these things, the game Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, if you have spooky songs that are not necessarily Halloween songs, you want to let us know, send it to us. We will do it. And again, if it's for Sejohn or for me specifically, make sure you put our name in the subject line. One step beyond that, the playlist of all our three spooky songs 3 will be available on Spotify, so you can go out, you can listen, and you can judge that and tell us if we're wrong or if like maybe we've created the next hot poppin' mix for the 2023 spooky season. Until then, thank you for listening. Sejohn, thanks for being here. You make everything wonderful.
Thank you, Dev. This is a new ending. I'm confused.
I don't know. Will, take us home before I confuse Sejohn anymore. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.